Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another mini review, and today we're talking about Dungeons of Doria by Victor Ahrens. And I do apologize if I mispronounced that name. Now what this game is this is a dungeon crawl, kind of roguelike, I guess. Not really, that's not, you know what, I don't think I actually know what that term means, but kind of. It's a random dungeon each time, even when you're doing the same adventure. There you go. And this is a game that I previewed way back when it was on Kickstarter, and the publisher and designer asked me if I would revisit it in a video now that it's delivered and after I had time to sit down and play it. And I will say, it actually took me a long time to get to it, because it's a little bit of a daunting game. But before I get there, let's talk about what this game is. Now, up there you'll see a playthrough that I did during the initial GameFound campaign or Kickstarter campaign, so you can just kind of see what's kind of going on a little bit. And this is a game where whether or not you are doing a single one-off scenario or you are doing a full campaign, and there's 4 or 5 of these full campaigns in the game, you're going to wind up with a couple of characters, and these characters have several basic stats. Basic stats being their dexterity and their speed and their magic power, I forget what it's called, mana, whatever. And these different stats will then come together and give you a couple of other different things. You'll get your hit point score, you'll get your initiative score, etc., etc. And you can either take a pre-made character, which this is all set up for you, when they'll come with some items that you're going to use, or you can actually create your own character from nothing. And you're kind of supposed to create your own character from nothing if you're doing kind of the story mode playing all the way through, but you don't have to. And with any good dungeon crawl you're going through, you're going to be leveling up. And in this particular game, every time you get enough experience points for everyone to use it, then you're simply going to get to boost one of your stats. It's this very, very simple, pretty clean boosting stats, and you're going to go through. Beyond that, it is a dungeon crawl. And so what will happen is at the beginning of each scenario, you'll be told, okay, this is the goal. You need to get to this tile and do this thing. Or maybe you have to have these 2 tiles and do these things. And then you're going to be told what other tiles to mix in, and then you'll shuffle tiles up, and every time you open a door, you'll flip a tile over, and you will get what you get. And sometimes, when you open up a door, you'll get big rooms, which means you'll flip out one tile, then there'll be kind of an open space. You'll have to flip out another tile and another tile. And then depending on how many characters you're playing with, that'll determine how many bad guys are out there. And the bad guys also are determined by a deck. You'll flip a bad guy off the top of the deck, and that's what you'll have. But sometimes the bad guys will have boosts that they'll get. They'll come out and they'll be a commander, or they will be extra tough, or they'll have a flaming aura, or whatever. And it just comes right out of the deck over and over, so you don't quite know what you're going to get. And the other thing that I want to point out, again, as you're kind of going through these scenarios, is kind of the main mechanic is this initiative board. And so what happens is, at the beginning of each round, you'll roll 2d10, and 10s are exploding crits, and if you ever roll a double 1 on any of your attacks, then you actually have a fumble, and that is for bad guys or for the good guys as well. But you're going to roll your 2d10, and you'll add your initiative. And that's how far up on this track you go. So invariably, every round, you're going to have significantly more actions you can take than the bad guys. The bad guys are going to activate one time, and they'll use up all of their movement, and the AI is fairly simple to operate. But what's going to happen is, every square you move is going to be 1 point. Open up a treasure chest, open up a door is going to cost you points. Try to jump over something is going to cost you points. And your attacks will cost you usually a lot of points, and each different weapon you have will tell you, oh, this is a 15 initiative point attack, or whatever it is. So you'll be moving down until you are past someone on the initiative track, and then they get to go. And so, depending on how you play your cards, or there are no cards, but how you choose your actions, you'll be able to kind of puzzle out the best way to do the most things. And then everything is determined by d10s. And it's very simple. You're going to roll however many d10s you get for your attack, plus any bonuses that you have, and you'll look at how many defense dice that the bad guy has and whatever bonuses they have, and you'll roll them both, and whoever is higher is going to hit. Now, if you win by more than 10, then you've done a critical and you get to do extra damage, etc., etc. But that's kind of how it all works. And you're going to play through either until you achieve the single scenario or the chapter of the story you're on, then you'll move on to the next one. With that said, what do I like about this game? The first thing is Same thing I said when I previewed it. I really like this initiative system. I find it very, very fresh. I find it very, very interesting when it comes to kind of the puzzle, and it's just fun. It is just fun the way that board works and the way your initiative works. It's very, very clever, and it works really, really well. At the same time, I also think the AI of the bad guys is pretty darn easy to operate. It's very, very simple. And I also like the huge, huge, huge variety of cards of loot that you can get. Along with that, I didn't mention it in the kind of brief overview, but there is this little market that's always there at the end of any turn you can buy from the market. And the way money is done is really simple too. It's just each card that you have, each piece of loot that you have has a value. And you can spend them. Just, okay, well this card is worth 2 coins, so I'm going to spend this to buy this. And it's very quick, it's very clean, it's very simple, and being able to figure out can you use an item is also very simple as well. I think all that's very cool, and I also will say, and I'm going to talk about this later on, just the D10 system is fun because you're just chucking a lot of dice, and you're chucking 2 dice. Oh, I rolled a 10, and so I'm rolling 3, or you find a big hammer, and now you're rolling 5 dice, or whatever. It's very satisfying how quickly the dice can ramp up. And also the different effects that all the weapons have is also pretty darn satisfying. The last thing I'm going to call out as being something that I like is the way armor works. Armor is very simple. You have it, and at any time you can be like, I'm going to use this armor to block however much damage it blocks. And sometimes it'll say, oh, you can't block electricity, so you can't use it if it's an electric attack, or something like that. But when you use it, it breaks until you fix it. And I don't know, I just have never played a game that works like that. It's just pure damage reduction, and you use it, you've lost it, you can fix it. And I think that is just really, really clever, and I really like that. So what are my quibbles with the game? Well, I have one major quibble with this game that is either going to be the thing that's going to drive you away from this game, or you're going to be like, who cares? And that is, this is the swingiest dungeon crawl I have ever played. Everything is swingy. Chucking a bunch of 2d10s, I don't know statistically how the math works. If you are a math person, you can tell me in the comments. But sometimes you are smashing things, and sometimes you are a disaster. When I played with Skippy a couple weeks ago, I think I actually went like 40 minutes without hitting anything, because I'm just chucking these dice, and I'm rolling 5s, and I'm chucking the bad guy dice, and they're rolling 30s, and it's super, super swingy. But, you know, a dice game. However, remember that huge stack of loot that I was talking about that's really cool? Most of that stuff you can't use, at least early in the game, because of the requirements that go along with it. And so, even at the beginning of the game, you get to draw extra loot to kind of siege your player board and kind of arm yourself up, but you're just drawing a bunch of stuff, and odds are you might get nothing that you can use. And yes, you can then use it to buy more things, but sometimes there's nothing out there that you can use. And so even in that, it feels really, really swingy. Sometimes it's, oh my gosh, I just got a full set of armor on my first draw. Other times, like, oh my gosh, I have nothing that I can use. Well, when I opened up a chest, oh my gosh, there's nothing there that I can use. And it is very easy to pass stuff back and forth, and it's free to pass items back and forth, but still, it can be very, very swingy. The same thing when it comes to the bad guys. You're drawing from the top of the deck, and you might draw something at the beginning of the game that has armor, and you can't hurt it because you don't have any items that can do enough damage yet. Or you might wind up drawing 2 or 3 of these monster abilities, and suddenly, right out the gate, you have this really powerful monster you're facing. Now, all of that said, I don't know that that is a bad thing, but I'm just pointing it out to tell you that it is extremely swingy. There's going to be times when you're like, you know what? Now we're going to run, and you're just going to try to run away. And you can't even really stop and kind of power yourself up, because every time you're not opening a new door, you're advancing kind of the doom counter, where then the monsters are going to get stronger. So just something to understand. And the other thing that I'll say is, and I know that down the road at some point, and maybe not in this next campaign, might be the following campaign, they are actually thinking about some kind of shift that kind of talks about these kinds of things. Each of the different characters does not feel super unique, because yes, they have starting abilities and the art's cool, and I actually got to help design one. Basically I said, oh well, here's an idea, and they they ran with it, which is super cool. But each of them, they're just some different starting numbers and some different starting equipment. They don't have abilities that make them feel different. So realistically, I could build up over 2 games, make my alchemist that I started with just like the warrior, just that that's how I spend my stats. And so while that's part of the cool of the game, is that you can build them how you want and it's fairly easy to build your characters, I wish that there was something in the in-between games if you're doing a campaign or something. So I got to recommend a design for an alchemist. I wish the alchemist in between had the opportunity to brew a potion. Maybe the scoundrel could, I don't know, make a poison or something. Like, I don't know. But something in between so each of the characters felt a little bit more special, even if I build another character to the same stat build. But really, that's it, folks. I think this is a very... But that's it, folks. I think this is a fun dungeon crawler, and I really enjoy it. It's a longer game, it's got a lot going on, it can be very, very swingy, which can be very, very frustrating, but it can also be really, really satisfying as you're kind of swinging back and forth. But it has a really unique activation system. I think the vastness of the different enemies is great, the vastness of the different loot that you can get is great, and building out the dungeon is clever every single time that you do it. And the stories that you're kind of playing through are pretty interesting as well. I actually enjoy the little campaigns you're going on, and it's a perfect length for a campaign. I think it's 5, you play through 5 different scenarios and then campaign over, and that's a great length of a campaign, I think, because there's just a bunch of them that you have. But there you have it, folks. That is Dungeons of Doria. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.